Hello listeners and welcome to the Tyrantcast. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Tonight you're listening to the 27th episode of a podcast-style, primarily audio discussion topic-centric video series. Joining me as always is Sam Mann. So, Sam, because for some strange, unexplainable reason we keep meeting up to record this podcast, how are you and what have you been up to lately?
I'm good, Mitch. I've just been up to testing some decks out for Worlds. I know what I'm going to play for the main tournament, but I'm not yet sold on what I'm going to play for World Eater. So,
okay,
yeah. Well, I guess I'll have to figure that out pretty quick because as we record, World Eater is just like a week away. So. I have to figure that out.
Well, so you and I are sitting down on October 26th, 2016 to record this. When exactly are the World Championships taking place? I'm not going to be able to attend this year, so when are you headed down to Roseville?
Well, I'm going on Tuesday, so the day after Halloween, I will be driving up there, and then Wednesday, the 2nd, is Conquest Swiss, 6 rounds of Swiss. And then Thursday is Top Cut. So, since I'll be making that, I won't get to play in the noon World Eater, but then there's a 4:30 World Eater. I guess they're going to have 2 separate 4-round tournaments. And that's kind of nice, because people complained, that there wouldn't be a side event for those Top Cut players. And
right.
Although, I think Top Cut starts at 9:30. So you could feasibly, play 2 games and get knocked out and still get over to the World Eater. Because I think they're both in the Radisson. So, yeah. So that'll be it. And I don't know if I'll have time to play in the 4 p.m. World Eater because I have to drive home that night. So that would be getting done at 8 and then getting home at 2 or 3 in the morning. So
right.
It's probably just the noon World Eater for me, and then going home. I won't, unfortunately, be able to be there long. My wife's got to go to Florida for work, so I got to get home and take care of the kiddos. But nonetheless, the World Eater is the 3rd, so I guess I better figure out what I'm going to play.
Well, if you can only win 2 out of the 3 tournaments, I won't be totally disappointed in you, Sam. But,
Thank you.
I don't want to put the pressure on, but let's say if you don't become world champion, I'm strongly going to consider just putting an end to this podcast altogether. Man. So,
well, I think the funny thing is that if I, by some stroke of luck, became world champ, we would still be putting an end to this podcast. So,
at least regular episodes.
But, yeah, I don't know. I've been up to that. I've been playing some games with my buddies. You ever played this game called Epic Spell Wars of the Battle of Wizards? Or of the Battle of Wizards?
No, but it sounds like a hell of a game.
It is ridiculous. I guess the guy who does... It's all cartoon drawings on these cards, and it's the same guy that does Adventure Time animation.
Oh, okay.
And, so, everybody chooses, a big character card, and I think... everything, everyone's stats are the same. You all have 30 health or whatever the hell it is. But they all just have different names and stupid, cartoon caricatures. And
sure.
You have to, there's these dumb rules. You, have to say their name, in a weird wizard voice. And you have to say your spell in a weird wizard voice when you cast it.
Nice.
So, my buddy was, this big, giant... Danishman-looking wizard, in little lederhosen and everything, and his name was Hog the House, and he always said Hog the House.
Nice.
So it's crazy, but everyone's dealt 8 cards, and there's I can't remember what they're called, but it's basically part A, beginning, middle, and end of a spell, and you have to have at least a beginning and a middle, or a beginning, middle, end, and each thing does something, and these cards all combo off each other. And so you can deal damage to the person to your left or to the right or the most healthy player or the most wounded player. And it's kind of like a last man standing thing. And it's really fun. I mean, the names and the wording and everything is just so stupid and silly that it gets... And plus we were drinking, so it gets everybody laughing. It was a really fun, stupid, fun game. So
Well, awesome. Glad to hear that you're still out experimenting with new games since Conquest has kind of an uncertain future ahead of it. Personally speaking, one of my most memorable gaming experiences was with something called Serpent's Tongue, which is a game which emphasizes pronouncing like magic. Let's say if I were to cast a fireball spell on you, I would have to speak the, spoken component of the spell, so I'd have to basically learn some weird fabricated language specific to the game, and then there were like gestures that you'd have to follow, and the person to your left or right would have to verify that you're speaking the spell correctly, and man, that was an interesting experience. But anyways, Sam, it sounds like you've been very busy with preparing for Worlds. For this episode, we've got one last war pack to cover. It's the Warp Unleashed is the last war pack of the Death World cycle. Seems like just yesterday it started, and it's already over. You've got some news about your Black Crusade expansion project that we'll touch on, and since the World Championship is coming up very soon, they've finally revealed the prizes for that. So there's a little bit more content still to come for Conquest, even though the end is in sight. But as is our tradition, let's start with the Tales from the Tabletop segment. So I imagine you've been playing quite a bit of Conquest lately, but what's a memorable game or two?
Well, I guess I'll go a little different, just because every game I've been playing lately is for testing for Worlds, and I don't want to reveal to the hundreds of people that may listen to this exactly who I'm playing just yet, because I'll probably face a few of those people at Worlds.
Are you sure you don't want to run through your deck list real quick?
Yeah, let me do that right quick. But okay, here's my unorthodox tale from the tabletop. I watched the top 8 Ork on Ork game that you commentated for the Black Crusade League.
I love that one.
Okay, so it was funny because like your commentary was keeping it like fresh and lively, and but you said something like, "Hey, this game's moving along at a good clip. I'm used to these 90-minute matches," and the thing clocked in at like 92 minutes, which was great.
Yeah, now, I said that like 30 seconds into the game.
Yeah. So, of course, like the Nazdrag player, he missed like twice these triggers on like the first turn. He didn't trigger his Squiggoth Brute reaction, and I thought like maybe he didn't trigger it on purpose because he was going to like have enough shields to live through it, and like he wanted to beef him up with damage, just to get him more powerful. But then he retreated, so then I didn't know what he was good doing. And then like later in the game, there was a turn where he had 2 of them out, and he didn't trigger either reaction. So It was like funny, but it was actually like kind of a good game. Like it was tense and it was close, and it came down to the 7th planet, and there was like a weird kind of take back thing. But good on both those guys for getting Zogwart and Nazi to the top 8. We had actually 2 Zogwarts in the top 8, and they both sadly went out. But we're on to the top 4 now, and one of those games has been decided, and we will have a warlord not many people thought would be in the final game, and then the other one will be decided on, I think, Sunday?
Yeah, so I think this episode should be out before the top 4 match takes place. So the fall 2016 season of your online Black Crusade tournament is rapidly coming to a close, and it looks like it could be a very unconventional last matchup, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, there's this game you'll be recording in a few days. It's got one warlord that is not a surprise to be here and one warlord that kind of is. So I'm going to naturally root for the underdog and see if we can get a final matchup that's got like 2 warlords that no one would probably expect to be in the final. So yeah, but it was a good game. So thank you for recording it. And there was some weirdness going on, but despite missing these Squiggoth Brute triggers, the Nazdrag player pulled it out, and I guess that just shows how good... I mean, what it shows is how good that ridiculous card is, because it's like, even without using it with its reaction, just a 5/9 Brutal, like on its own, is really tough to get around, and especially when you get all 3 of them out in a game. So, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I suppose if you happen to transform that 5/9 into like an 11 attack power, something or other, that can definitely do some significant damage. So, yeah, it was. I'm sure now that I've lived through the experience of recording another practically 2-hour long game because I edit out silence, I'm sure it would be just lovely to watch in hindsight for me.
Yeah.
But Sam, FFG has finally revealed the prize support that you're going to be able to win at Worlds because you're going to take home the championship. So the winner, of course, goes home with a trophy, another one-of-a-kind playmat depicting, this time it's the card art for Mind War. But why don't you just kind of run us through what people that don't perform quite so well can expect to take home?
All right, so the participation prize is going to be Alt Art Void Pirate. So I'm assuming that everyone that like signs up is going to get one copy when they show up and get their little deck box and their, assuming they do it like they do in the past, right? You get like one card for all the games kind of thing.
I think they're actually changing it.
Oh, are they
so it's
changing
only
it? Okay.
the games that you participate in.
Okay.
But they do get one copy of the Alt Art Void Pirate.
Yeah, and I love this thing. It's got this crazy orc that's got a strange looking hat on, like, I don't know, like a top hat with fangs, and then he's got...
It's kind of like an admiral's hat, sort of.
Yeah, kind of. I guess that's what it's supposed to be. And then he's got his collar popped. He's obviously got like some beard mousse in to hold that beard in place. He's got a cigar going. He's got an electro claw for a hand. I told John Gobet that must just be to like light his cigar all the easier. So I love this thing. It's cool. And then I guess you get like two more, if you stay the whole time or through your last game or whatever. So you'll get 3 of them if you play the whole thing. So then the top like third, which is kind of a strange thing, but the top third will get these acrylic command icon token set. So,
yeah.
Did they say how many were in a full set of command icon tokens?
No, but I think for all the acrylic tokens, it's maybe been like 8 or something.
Right, so I don't really know like what you would need command tokens for. I guess like it's a cool way to promote a guy. Like you still have to have the card on the table though, so...
Yeah, and it's not like command icon tokens or something that currently exist in Conquest.
Right.
So I would imagine they're just going to be some sort of fancy token.
Yeah, I'll just use them for like, whatever, like plus attack or plus HP or unstoppable or something, I'll probably use them for like something else. Top 16 get this cool playmat of the Void Pirate Orc. And then top 8 are going to get a full set of alt...
And this one was weird. So it's a set, they call it, of the token cards. So it's like alternate art cards for the tokens.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be like full bleed art cards, but you only get 3 of each token. So it would be like 3 Termagants, 3 Chimera, 3 Snotlings.
Yeah, so, that's kind of cool, I guess. I mean, you could probably go through more than 3, but sometimes you won't. So it's cool to have, it's always cool to have those out. I mean, you can just stack up your 10 tokens and make sure you put the cool 3 on top. So those are the ones you can play with the most.
And I may have misspoken. I don't think they're actually alternate art. I just think it's like the full art.
Full bleed. Okay, yeah. Just like a cool full bleed card.
Right.
Top 4 are going to get like this uncut sheet of cards. So it's like an 8x11, sheet of cards that's just like Void Pirate after Void Pirate of this new orc. And so that's kind of
so weird that it's like everything is themed around this one new card.
Right. So it's cool though. I mean, that's different. It's something we haven't seen, so I don't know what you do with it. I guess you frame it or do whatever the hell you do with it. Maybe you get Brad to sign it. I don't know. And then the winner is going to get this trophy, one-of-a-kind playmat, that's the Mind War, and then a chance to design a card. And from what I've heard, because Conquest is no longer in production, they'll get to design the card, and then they themselves will get some copies of that card. But
sounds like it.
Yeah, I think what we're gonna. This hasn't been confirmed, but I got to double check with some people. But we're gonna try to like put those cards, not necessarily in our Armageddon Pack 1 Eye of Terror expansion, but just like have them, like when we put those up, we'll try to put the cards up if we can, just for people to, print and play or have on Octagon, because those are like, official cards.
Yeah.
So that's not been confirmed, but seeing as how like 2 of the 3 people that are designing cards are in my design team, hopefully they'll be good enough to let us share those with everybody. So we'll see.
Right. And that's kind of the tricky thing, is the prize for like the North American Championships, for the World Championships, for all the living card games, the competitive living card games. It's been the opportunity and honor to design a card that ends up being released and incorporated into your LCG of choice. Mm-hmm. They keep up that tradition here for Conquest, but since they're not going to be doing any more tournament kits or organized play support or expansions, they don't really have any way to get that to people.
Right.
And my, through the grapevine understanding is that they're not really going to be allowed to manufacture any Conquest products in the very near future.
Right.
So for the existing, world champion Varun, Jeremy, Zwern, for Nathan Gardner, the 2016 North American champion, they're going to do like a limited print run and then just basically give it to those individuals to do with kind of what they please.
Correct.
So
I know that like those 3 guys, they had to have their cards, like the date has passed that they had to have those in, because I was talking to Nathan about it, and I'm going to assume that Varun and Jeremy have submitted something. I know Nathan has. And, it's not like final. I think Nathan said that, they got a little bit of time, however long it takes the artist to come up with the art, to like tweak a stat here or there. But the card is essentially designed with just minor tweaks to be made before they say, okay, it's time for the final thing. So it was funny because I said to Nathan, so is there anyone besides you and Jeremy and Varun that gets to do this? And he goes, well, whoever wins this year. And like back to back, we both typed, I typed, so you 3 and me. And then he typed, I can't wait to design my second card. So it's like,
nice.
So yeah, but whoever wins will get to do that. So it won't be as cool as like seeing it in a future pack, but on a retail shelf. But nonetheless, they get to do it anyway.
Yeah, and well, Sam, just to make sure that our listeners are on the same page as you and I heard you toss out some terms, the Armageddon expansion and the Black Crusade project. Like, what's all that business about?
Yeah, so we just kind of announced both on my website and on the Facebook and Card Game DB forums our first official expansion pack. So what this is this is like a group of guys I kind of gathered together, and I mean we talked about this before, but this is kind of the first official preview, so to speak.
Sure.
And we didn't have any like true spoilers, but Varun wrote a little fluff narrative piece in the preview article, and you can kind of read between the lines in that little piece.
Varun is the 2015 world champion.
Yes, and the 2-time UK champion.
Right.
And he wrote a little fluff piece that I included in the preview article, and so you can kind of read between the lines and see if you can gather any insight as to what some of these cards will be. But what we're doing is, I've got a group of there's 14 of us, and we are designing cards, a fan-made expansion. So these will be available on my website for you to print out and, sleeve up for yourself, or we're also going to put them on Octagon. So it'll be like as official as it can get from here on out. And the first cycle is called the Armageddon cycle, and the first pack is called the Eye of Terror, and that will be hitting digital shelves in January, in time for the winter 2017 Black Crusade League to start. So we will have some new cards, and the design team, for anyone who cares, because I don't want them to think it's like, you and me just sitting here making up cards and shit. So I tried to gather a good group of people, but I got Christopher Dale Bates from the Roseville meta.
Right.
We got Brian and Scott off of First Planet. We got Corvus, who's a 2-time Black Crusade champ. We got a Varun, of course, who's the reigning world champ and the 2-time UK champ. We got Paige Mann, who is the European Continental champ and the Alignment Wheel champ. We've got Papa Khan, who's the US champ. He's from the Roseville meta as well. Myself, Joey Cook, who won the Midwest Sector Championship, which was kind of like the Midwest/Chicago giant regional thing. And he was Gen Con runner-up. We have Paul Steiner, who's kind of the rules guru 2.0 behind K-Tom. He's the moderator at CardGameDB for Conquest. He's the inventor of the game result database. He is a 1-time Black Crusade champ. We have yourself. We have Tobin Lopez from the Traxxas sector. We have Nathan Warfather, who's the reigning Gen Con champ and also from the Roseville meta. And we have friend of the show, John Gobet, who's a meta organizer in Toronto and the Facebook admin for the group. So that's the group of people. We've been working hard for a couple months now, designing stuff, playtesting stuff, debating lots of stuff back and forth, and we're going to hit it hard again after Worlds is over, and we'll get our playtest net will be broadened a little bit come December for some final tweaking and playtesting, and then we'll have these things up in January. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, I can hardly think of a pool of players better qualified to help design some cards. I mean, people from the Roseville meta have had close personal contact with Brad Andrees. They've maybe, I don't want to insinuate something, but maybe at some point they've participated in developing cards for this game. Gee, I don't know.
Yeah, I think, I didn't have the number, but I think Paul told me that in that 14 of us, there was like 7 or 8 former playtesters. So,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that is statistically significant,
right.
But it should be just a great group of people, and once this World Championship obligation is done, I'm sure everybody will have plenty of time to dedicate to making some superb cards. And I just also want to emphasize that the goal of this project isn't to, make Packmaster Kith stronger or something like that. It's like, let's make some of the underloved warlords more viable, bring everything up to a more approximately equal level of play, and then eventually, once things are a bit more balanced, warlord faction-wise, then maybe people will start to experiment with some more off-the-wall type stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think we haven't even designed a warlord of our own.
Right.
I think the goal is there's a lot left out there, kind of underdeveloped and unfinished. Because of the cancellation, and so there's not going to be any new planets or warlords or keywords for this first expansion. Maybe there will be something more down the road, but
right.
We're just kind of trying to build off the building blocks that FFG had kind of left us with sitting there.
Yeah.
So.
Because I think the goal is balance and restraint, as opposed to, wouldn't it be cool if there was a warlord that had 8 HP and area effect 2 and flying and all sorts of ridiculous stuff.
Right. Yeah, we're really trying to kind of keep it balanced and to fit in with what we can what we've come to expect from this game. We want to get the wording right, the templating right. I mean, Corvus has been good at that. He's like, hey, you included this verb or this pronoun, and it should be this to fit, whatever. So, yeah, it can be, it's been a bit of work, but it's been fun. So, but yeah, it's been a little quiet on the last 3 or so weeks because everybody's getting ready for Worlds. So, at any rate, you can go to, hell, you've probably seen this announcement by now if you're listening to this, but you can go to my website and check it out. There's a new page just called the Vha'shaelhur Expansion Project, and, you can read it there, and if any of you guys are at Worlds, feel free to come up to some of us and talk. There's still that forum that we have linked in there on CardGameDB where you can submit your own ideas, and we've definitely been looking at those. We've definitely been, maybe not in a lot of cases, we're not going to take the card as it is. We're going to have to tweak it, or we're going to have to all agree on it. But like piecemeal, like, hey, that's a good idea, and that's a good idea, and that's a good idea. So like these are good themes and ideas for what this faction needs and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, so I look forward to seeing how the project goes, what the community response is, and probably more than anything else, just seeing what kind of cards these superb, champion-level players manage to come up with. But, Sam, before we get into the exciting unofficial content, we've still got one last war pack to crack open and cover. It is the Warp Unleashed. It introduces the final Chaos faction warlord and then a smattering of non-signature cards. But our last warlord here is going to be Vha'shaelhur. It's a 1/8. It's Demon and Slaanesh trait. It's got the keyword Area Effect 1, 7 starting cards, 7 starting resources, and the reaction after an enemy army unit is destroyed while this unit is attacking, put a cultist token into play at your HQ, limit once per attack. And even though area effect isn't explicitly an attack, it still counts as an effect which occurs while the unit is considered to be attacking. Mm-hmm. So if you use area effect and destroy at least one army unit, in the process, then you do generate a cultist. But, Sam, this new warlord here, what's your preliminary assessment?
He's pretty good. I've played a fair amount of games with him. And, I had said in the past that I kind of think that he's like where the Chaos Elites belong. But then, in the meantime, since this guy was first previewed, now these Ku'gath Elite decks are the thing.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if he's going to overtake Ku'gath. Ku'gath is so good just holding down the fort on his own with, his damage moving and, his banner and his fetid haze and all that stuff. But I really like Vha'shaelhur. AoE 1 is good because, it's not like overpowering, but it's AoE 1 that can't be routed or exhausted or anything through any card effect. I have noticed in my games, I don't really generate that many tokens through this ability of his. There's been games where I've done it once or none, and there's been maybe a game where I did it 3 or 4 times, but even that was I think one game. Because people are shielding. It's rare there's 3 Void Pirates at a planet, right? And you go command snipe and then just AoE one them all. There might just be one, and the guy's just going to shield it and retreat because he doesn't want you to get that cultist train rolling. And but 8 HP is nice. He's a little hardier than, say, Zerathur, or even Ku'gath on his own without the banner. But then again, he can't move damage off him. But I like him. He's well, and just on his own, I think he's fine, but I really like him in conjunction with his signature pod. So let's get into that.
Yeah, just before we move on, I will say we've known about this warlord for so long now. At one point, Area Effect 1 seemed like a huge deal, but now that we're moving more and more toward elites and higher HP units, AE1 just isn't quite what it used to be. But anyways, breaking into the signature squad here, we've got 4 copies of the army unit Alluring Demonette. It's a 3 cost, 1 command icon, 3/2, Demon, Slaanesh, and combat action is sacrifice a cultist unit, army unit, or token you control to move an enemy army unit at an adjacent planet to this planet. A limit once per phase. So I suppose you can kind of vacuum army units at adjacent planets to its planet. Maybe you can end up sniping an economy unit or killing a vulnerable army unit while you have initiative or something like that. But from the Vha'shaelhur games I've seen, I don't think I've seen a Demonette do really anything, but what are your thoughts here?
Oh, my thoughts are she's very good. Well, first off, the artwork, she's looking, that's a swipe right if I've ever seen it. Look at that. Look at that beauty. But, no, I think this unit is really good, and the people that have shit on it or been underimpressed by it are I don't know if they haven't really played it yet, or they're not playing it right. But this is a Telegraph Sicarius is chosen. Right. The thing is, it doesn't target. So it's like that backlash you're holding on to save your Squiggoth Brute or your, whatever it is, the big elite that you've got over there, Leman Russ Conqueror or Sword Brethren Dreadnought or whatever. That's not going to do shit. I'm going to move this thing, and there's nothing you can do about it. I like that it can be a cultist token. I like that it can be a Splintered Path Acolyte or a Chaos Fanatic. I've even seen Dan Napolitano, whose name I always butcher. Sorry, Dan. He asked this question, and then in a game against me, he did this. He put the Mark of Slanesh on the cultist unit in deploy phase. And so what happened was, once you get in like mid to late game and the board starts to shrink, Mark of Slanesh is when this unit leaves play, move a unit you control to this planet. And so he has, let's say he needs to win Planet 1. He needs to move a threat at Planet 1 off of Planet 1. But the Demonette's out at Planet 3. He had a cultist at Planet 2, and he did this twice. A cultist at Planet 2, he puts the Mark of Slanesh on him. That is an interrupt when that unit leaves play. So he sacks it, triggers the interrupt, moved the Demonette over to Planet 2 where that unit was, and then moved a unit from 1 over to 2. So even though the Demonette started at 3, it moved into 2 before it finished its action because of the interrupt. And I thought that was pretty cool. It's a corner case. It's not going to happen often. But again, he did get it off twice versus me. Right. But it's just really cool. I mean, any unit I want, army unit I want, is going to get moved. And there's nothing they can do about it. Now, you got to be careful because movement's a thing, right? If you move a Wild Rider Squadron, it's just going to move back. Sure. If you move a Wild Rider Viper, there could be a way to get it back. If you're going up against Chaos and you move it to this planet and this planet's blue, maybe he has a Teleportarium out or something. But you're going to see all that. I mean, you're going to be able to deduce what they can and can't do. And it's really nice to take a big threat and just move it off the planet. And I really like this card.
Yeah, sure. Maybe you spend a bunch of resources on some big nasty elite, and all of a sudden I just say, I'd really rather not deal with that in this battle, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull it away from that planet. Right. Maybe something uses mobile or teleports away, and you just pull it right back to where you want it. So it is a pretty cool card. It's got the demon trait, so you can cost reduce it. You can the Prince's Might it. Even though it's pretty fragile, it is definitely cool, and Sicarius is chosen as good. In a sense, this is more expensive, but I don't know if I want to say it's necessarily outright better, but a very powerful card. And so a lot of cool stuff you can do with this one. But next, in the signature squad, we've got the attachment Predatory Instinct. It's a cost of 2, 3 shields, skill trait, and attached to a chaos unit you control. Attached unit gains area effect 1. So you could put this on your warlord to give it area effect 2, but are you considering this like a playable card, or do you find yourself more often using it as shields?
I'd say it's about half and half. Just because Vha'shaelhur is running so many elites, I don't really have the money to pay for like frontline Ardboys to keep him healthy and unattackable. So sometimes you need the shields. And I've never put it on anyone other than Vha'shaelhur. But there could be instances where like this on a Helldrake is really good. Because if you have a Helldrake against, 6 weenies, like tokens and 1 and 2 cost units, you're going to lose that battle, And if, meanwhile, you can do AoE 1 to those things, and then they get a few attacks in, and then you're ready and do it again. You can kill them off quicker, and the war of attrition stops. So I haven't seen that played. I've only ever seen it, either myself or an opponent, put it on Vha'shaelhur or shield with it. But, 2 costs for AoE 1. It's not as good as Gun Drones, which is like 2 for 2. But the fact that this can go on your Warlord and it can't be stopped, now you've got an AoE 2 unit that, it can't be... the only way to get rid of it is to bloody the thing. So I do like it.
Yeah, and maybe I've just been seeing some orc matches lately, but snotling attack seems like it's a thing. This is a skill, not war gear, so if you've just got one elite, one damage can still kill an unlimited number of tokens if they can't shield against it. So it's a cool card, and even if you don't always use it for its intended effect, everybody's got the same ability to toss their 3-shielder. But the signature support is unique. It is the Tower of Worship. It costs 1. It's location and Slanesh, so it's a little bit more vulnerable than a lot of supports to removal. The reaction is after you deploy a demon unit, you can put a cultist token into play at your HQ. So it's great on the first turn, but it kind of, loses utility pretty quick. I suppose, what's your experience with this?
That it's very, very good. And maybe I just haven't gone up against enough Squig Bombing or Imperial Fist Devastators or something lately, but I don't think I've had this thing blown up, or if I have, it wasn't immediate. And, it pays for itself the first time you deploy a demon. And the fact that you don't have to exhaust it and that it's basically unlimited, deploy a demonette, make a cultist for her to use later, right? I've done that as my last move. Or deploy a demonette, make a cultist, sack the cultist, put out another demon, make another cult. It keeps rolling and rolling. It's kind of like this weird economy / demonette fodder type of forward barracks where it just keeps rolling and rolling as long as you can keep deploying and deploying. But I really like this card, and I've got nothing bad to say about it. And even if they blow it up, like Squig Bomb is still the most conventional support destruction there is. And, they spent 2, and that stinks that you lost the card, but, you only spent 1. So, you still kind of, you know what I'm saying? Get a little bit of a, maybe not net win, but not as big of a loss as blowing up a 2-cost support is.
Sure.
So I really like this thing. It's just, okay, Promise of Glory, STC, put an elite out for $1, make another token. Now I've got, it just keeps rolling. I really like this thing.
Yeah, I guess the dream might be like a Master Warpsmith and an Ominous Wind drawing a ton of demons, and then you play demons and each cultist token counts for double, and it certainly can be a fantastic just economy boost card. It's a bit of a shame I've not seen it played more often, but then again, that's kind of the trouble with having just one copy in your deck.
Sure.
But how about a card that I'm not exactly sold on? The signature event here, Demonic Incursion. 1 shield, 1 cost, power. Action is search the top 6 cards of your deck for a demon unit. Reveal it, add it to your hand, and put the remaining cards on the bottom of your deck in any order. So it's kind of like a cheaper version of Drop Pod, except you add a card to your hand instead of putting a unit into play. What do you think about this?
See, I look at it as like a commandless ECT for demons versus attachments.
That is probably a much better comparison.
Yeah. Okay, I like this card. You can make an argument it's probably the weakest card of the Signature Squad, but I don't think it's a bad card. I think with the prevalence of Ominous Wind, this is not as good as it was when it was first previewed.
Sure.
Because I don't think I've played a game with Vha'shaelhur where I didn't play Ominous Wind or couldn't play it if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And you've often got enough elites that you got. But this card saved me a game. I needed a Vicious Bloodletter to win the game, and I got it with this card, which was nice. So it won me a game. So it can't be too horrible. And
I guess, with Ominous Wind, maybe you've got a Helldrake in place, you draw 8 cards, and then if you're really, really digging for something, Demonic Incursion is you get to look at another 6 on top of what you've already drawn.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes with Wind, you don't, it's rare, but sometimes you don't find exactly what you needed, and this can just get you, that can get you that much closer to then this getting you what you need. And worst case, it's a shield. Cethariel can bring it back because it's a power. So yeah, it's a good card.
Well, I suppose just...
And there's no demon that I run that I don't want to see, right? It's not like, I can think of times where I don't want to see in Kugath, where I don't want to see one of his Nurglings, right? Like, that's not what I want to get. But it's either going to be an elite unit or the Alluring Demonette, and I'll take any of those anytime. So that's pretty good. But off topic, but I like that in my Kugath games, since this Ominous Wind has came out, it's like every time I discard cards, it's always the Nurglings that get discarded. So poor little fuckers.
Little guys.
Yeah.
Hopefully, your dev team comes up with something to make them a little bit more viable at some point.
Well, I don't think we're going to... Yeah, I was going to say, at least this first pack, I don't think we're going to give too much love, if any at all, to Kugath, because he's doing just fine.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
But, overall, Sam, Kugath has definitely kind of come into the spotlight in regard to Chaos Warlords. But, with Vha'shaelhur, how... Is he like a worse version of Kugath, or is there a big difference? What do you think overall, now that we've gone through the entire signature squad?
Well, I think Okay, let's take it card by card. So Vha'shaelhur himself is probably not as good as Kugath, because he's not as durable, and he can't bully early game. But he can make you money in the form of cultist tokens. He can also make you control in the form of cultist tokens if you have demonettes on the board. I will say that the Alluring Demonette is better than the Nurglings. I rather move a big threat away from the planet than ping 3 mid-range / elite units for 1 damage on their way in.
Yeah, totally.
His attachment's probably not as good. The banner's I still think that's the best attachment in the game, but this is a really good attachment still. The support is far and away better. In my opinion. And then the event, it's not as good, obviously, as Fetid Haze. So I think he's probably, on his own, a step below Kugath. But I think he's just different. I think he could be equally as good. There's just so much you can do, even with a few extra cultists, and he puts you over that hump. So I do like that.
Well, how about the, cultist synergy? Do you do anything with, the Ancient Keeper of Secrets or the, Seekers of Slanesh, where you sacrifice cultists to draw cards? Do you try any of that cute stuff, or do you just... I
haven't tried the Seekers of Slanesh. I don't like that card that much. But I've tried him with Master Warpsmith, and it just still, in my opinion, wasn't quite there. You're just counting on a lot to go right at once. I gotta have the Master Warpsmith out, and I gotta have the Tower out, maybe, or a Promise of Glory, or both. There's just too many pieces you need to come together to make that Warpsmith pay off in the long run, in my opinion. So I tried it, but I ended up taking him out. And, obviously Corrupted Teleportarium, that's a no-brainer. I think it's very similar. I think with him and Kugath, it's early meta Space Marines where you could just swap out the Warlord signature squad and the rest of the deck could remain the same.
Right.
I think it's just a different way of playing though, and I kind of like it. So I don't know. And then for the elites, the ones that I the big 3 that I see all the time are Helldrake, Vicious Bloodletter, and Possessed. And then with a little side note, shout out to Soul Grinder, maybe. Yeah. I've seen a little bit of him.
Funny how all those core set cards are kind of coming back.
Absolutely, which is nice, because for a while you didn't see him, Once Gleeful Plague Beast came out, that was the death nail for Vicious Bloodletter and Zarather. And, Ancient Keeper Secrets to me is still not there. Same with the Flesh Hounds. I've actually seen... I haven't played them myself, but I've gone up against the Vha'shaelhur deck that was playing both those, and they weren't a problem for me to handle. Just he couldn't get them going enough. But Yeah, I do really like... I like this guy. I like him quite well.
Well, I suppose I'll just look forward to seeing what people do with Vha'shaelhur, and I'm very curious to hear about what kind of presence he has at the last ever World Championship here. But, I guess I just remain very open to see what happens with Vha'shaelhur. Kugoth is just so hot right now. It's hard to see Vha'shaelhur kind of rivaling how much just power and versatility Kugoth can bring to the table here. But we've got many more cards to cover in this last war pack. So let's start clipping through these. And Sam, what's new for Space Marines?
All right, we've got the Iron Hand Centurion. He is a 5-cost army unit. He is not loyal. He has 3 command, 3 attack, 7 HP, soldier, iron hands, and elite traits. While this unit is ready, each unit with printed cost 2 or lower at this planet cannot be declared an attacker. I like this guy. I mean, $5 for a 3 command, 3/7 is pretty good. The thing that's tricky is at some point you're going to have to exhaust him, correct?
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, I'm not worried about these 2-cost guys because they can't hit. But at the same time, you kind of need to take care of them because the moment this guy attacks, they're all still standing, and then they're going to go to town on you. So,
Sure.
I don't know. I haven't played with this guy yet. But I do like it. I think it's a cool card, and I'll be interested to see what people do with it.
Yeah, I guess it's a bit of a bummer that, tokens don't have a printed cost, so they remain unaffected by its ability. It's expensive, so you're investing a lot of resources into one army unit. The fewer units you've got, the more early he's going to have to exhaust and attack himself. But maybe this would be a good opportunity to kill off some of your opponent's weaker stuff, especially if you can kind of trick them to have an elite maybe show up exhausted at the planet or something. I mean, with everything that costs more than 3, there's no drop pod assault synergy. It's common, like you said, so maybe it could work with Strachan. Kato can get a bunch of crap out, so I don't know.
He could work well in Tau decks that run for the Tau Va. Because he could attack and then they could ready up all their stuff again.
Yeah, that's very true.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's an interesting card. So I suppose is there maybe one specific warlord you see this going best with?
Well, I mean, you could put him in Mavros because you can ping him and he's still got a bunch of HP left.
Sure.
Like you said, Strachan, he's a 4/7. 4/7 with 3 command for 5 is a pretty good deal.
And I suppose if you want to keep Strachan healthy, that certainly helps with that.
Yeah. The thing is, I just now thought of this. It counts for your units too, though.
Yes, it totally does.
Maybe he's not great as an ally. In like your typical, War Strachan, Anchi, Shadow Sun deck where they're running a lot of 2-cost units.
Yeah.
But I like him because in Space Marines, like I could see him as your one elite in your mid-range Space Marine deck.
Right.
Because then all your 3-cost guys can beat the shit out of their army while they just sit there and take it in the face. So it'd be great if you have STC out, and with your last $3, you play him last, right? That's ideal. So because then if you play him first, they're just not gonna, go there or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. I like it. Pretty cool. Great art too.
Yeah, so not to sound like a broken record, but really for all of these cards, I just look forward to seeing what's done with them, probably in part because this is the last pack of the cycle. It seems like for all of FFG's LCGs, they try to do something kind of ambitious with the final cards to come out, so this is a lot of kind of swing for the fences type stuff that we see in this pack, so the more ambitious a design is, the more it can just totally miss or just totally be a home run. So
right.
I don't know what to think one way or the other, but what's our second army unit?
This is the 6-cost army unit Land Speeder Vengeance. It is loyal. 1 command, 4 attack, 3 HP, vehicle, Dark Angels, and Elite. No war gear attachments, and it has AoE 3, and it is flying. So, like, the biggest comparison I can make is the Vicious Bloodletter. So if I said to you, would you pay an extra $1 if I could give you a command and an extra HP on a Vicious Bloodletter? Your answer would probably be yes.
Sure.
And that's what this thing is. It's got 3 I mean, not quite, because you can Tzeentch's Firestorm it, right, and kill it quicker than you could a Vicious Bloodletter. Or you can, if you hit it for like 1, 1, and 1, it's still going to kind of die. But like with flying, you essentially have to hit this thing for 5 to kill it. And, AoE 3, pretty damn good. So, yeah, I like this guy.
It could be very difficult to remove. Really, the only complaint I have about this is just options are always nice, but it seems like in a perfect world, I would like it to be a little bit cheaper, and maybe it would give up some of its 4 attack value, just because normally you're going to be using this for area effect 3.
If it was like a 2/4, I'd take that in a heartbeat.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that Brad doesn't want to release totally broken cards. This is loyal, so there's no love for Maxim or Gorzod, but it's certainly a very compelling card. I guess my only other thought is people aren't exactly in the habit of running Daring Assault Squad anymore, but this has got the added protection of being an elite, and it's got flying, whereas Daring Assault Squad is just a 3/3. But potentially, cool.
You can't backlash if they mess up your, Daring Assault Squad. An extra AoE 1 can make a big bit of difference,
For sure.
All right, so our final card is the Standard of Devastation. This is a unique 3-cost support. It is common, relic and upgrade, limit 1 relic per player, and reaction. After a Dark Angel unit you control is destroyed, each other Space Marine Army unit you control gets +1 attack until the end of the phase. Okay, I like this. I really like the artwork. I've said before, Dark Angels are my favorite Space Marine chapter. They got some cool shit going on here. It might as well be loyal, though, because of what it is.
Sure.
But it's not loyal. It's a relic, but in Vha'shaelhur, which is the Dark Angel Warlord of choice, he doesn't really run relics. I haven't really seen like a Vha'shaelhur elite deck that relies on STC, and Fulgaris, the sword, is not a relic, so there's no problem with putting this in. You're going to have Dark Angels that die, and every other Space Marine Army unit you control is getting +1 attack till the end of the phase. That includes Space Marine units at another planet.
Right.
So, like, if you've got like a big battle going on and Planet 1 and, you lose a couple guys, then maybe the one Dark Angel you have sitting opposite the command sniping enemy warlord, maybe he's just getting +2 attack now because this thing just keeps stacking. 3 cost is steep for supports, but I don't know. I have to play with this to test like how good it really is. And like Katachan is $2 to give one guy +2.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just for 1 attack, correct?
Right.
So like this is $3 to potentially give a large number of +1 attacks to everybody. So it's probably costed right. It's not a location. I don't know. I really need to play with this, but I think at first blush it looks very interesting. What do you think?
Well, all I know is there's certainly a lot of playable Dark Angels trait units, like 8th Company Assault Squad. There's the Dark Angels Vindicator, which gets a bonus to attack for every command icon the defender has. The Deathwing Guard aren't really played. They're that 4 command icon 2/9 from the core set. The Deathwing Terminators, they're the ones that are the Deep Strike, and they're immune to being targeted by effects until the end of the first combat round. The Ravenwing Escort, nobody plays. But there's also the Tech Marine Aspirant, and of course Vha'shaelhur's Hunters. And if you've got multiples of those units all fighting in a planet, your opponent has to be pretty careful with what they kill when, because this will buff your Warlord, it'll buff your 10th Company Scouts, all of that stuff. And I guess this just might be... I don't know if Visual necessarily plays eager recruits, but I guess if you're going to play those, you might want to get them out early. But I just think it's going to be a little bit tricky to balance what you exhaust when, what your opponent attacks when, and when they decide to destroy your Dark Angels, because this definitely is telegraphed. But it definitely could be pretty cool, and global effects are always strong, and the more battles you're fighting, this could do some pretty significant stuff. So, once again, I look forward to seeing what's done with this one, but it's a very potentially powerful card.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe we should just do this for each of our factions. We said that Kugoth is kind of the reigning champion of chaos, but now we've seen every official Space Marine card. I guess, what do you think overall? Where do Space Marines sit right now overall in the meta?
Well, I think they're kind of in a tough spot. They're not swarmy and they're not elites, typically. So, like your typical Space Marine build. Now, obviously, you can get some swarmy, low-cost Space Marine decks. You can get some hard-hitting elite decks. I think Mavros and Kato are probably at the top. I think Ragnar's at the bottom. And I'm still honestly not sure where Visual fits in. I haven't played enough of him yet. I look forward to playing around more with him when I'm done testing for Worlds, because I really like him and I like Dark Angels. But, from what I've seen, he doesn't really run the traditional Space Marine tricks. He's just too busy putting shit into reserve to care about drop pods and elites and things like that. So, I don't know. I think Space Marines are still kind of like Old Faithful, right? Like they're still the good... I think they're a good, solid deck. I don't think any Space Marines made top cut in this most recent BCL. I can verify that in 1 second. And the answer is...
Well, I know that a Visual performed much better than I was expecting.
Oh, yeah, Visual. Yeah, okay. We had... he was the only one. We had two. We had two Visuals play each other in the top 16. So Visual was the only Warlord that made it into the top 16. But in fact, Space Marines as a whole were down quite a bit in the latest Black Crusade. I think, there was 77 Space Marine games. So you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other factions have more appearances than Space Marines, which is atypical of what things were even like one Black Crusade season ago. So I still think Space Marines are good. I think they're still right there, kind of in the tier 1, 1.5 for most of their guys. So, but these are 3 pretty interesting cards. So I guess they got a nice little send-off here.
Yeah. Well, and the way that development worked for this game is everything was supposed to kind of rise in power and then fall, and kind of there was supposed to be a little ebb and flow, so maybe Space Marines were kind of waxing or waning, and then maybe, for all we know, they were going to be heavily, brought back into the spotlight in the near future. But, like you said, 3 cool little cards. But up next, we've got the Astra Militarum. First, we have an army unit. It is the Mars Alpha Exterminator. It's 6 cost, loyal, 2 command icons. It's a 4/6, vehicle, tank, and elite. No war gear attachments, and reaction is after this unit is declared as an attacker, destroy either a target army unit with printed cost 2 or lower at this planet, or a target token unit at this planet. So it doesn't exactly pass our vanilla test here. Its total stat points aren't equal to double its cost with a command icon. But Obviously, it's good in Maxim in that it's a vehicle, so it could maybe receive his signature attachment and move around. It could fire multiple times if Maxim uses his signature event, Keep Firing. And, I mean, who doesn't love just, removing units from play? So, I think it's a pretty cool card.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, these non-hard... Well, I mean, 4 is hard-hitting, but, for the price, 4 is not real hard-hitting.
Sure.
And we've kind of come to see that with these these Astra Militarum vehicles. You got the, what's the thing? The Basilica or whatever it is? The Basilisk, whatever the thing is.
Shrieking Basilisk.
Yeah, that thing. Shrieking Basilisk. You got the regular Leman Russ. Even the Leman Russ Conqueror, it takes a while for that thing to get going. But its reaction is awesome. I mean...
Sure.
Okay, I'll swing for 4 on whoever, and then I'm going to blow up your Warlock Destructor, and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, unless that thing's got an attachment and comm relays out in a Shadow Sun deck, or unless there's something hiding behind the Land Raider, I don't see how they can stop it from going off. And so, yeah, it doesn't hit extremely hard for $6, but it's basically unpreventable Armor Bane on some weenie or token in addition to the 4 attacks. So I like this thing, and it's loyal, so no Gorzod love, which is a little sad. But it's good in Maxim, and it's probably good in most Astra Militarum decks.
For sure, and it's obviously great anti-swarm. I mean, it's the same faction as Clear Cut Refuge. It costs 6, so maybe it has 12 HP, and it just fires and annihilates 2 targets, fires again, removes 2 more targets from play. Maxim can keep shielding the hell out of it. So, very cool card. Maybe a little expensive, but I don't know. STC Fragment is a thing. It doesn't seem like people struggle to get elites into play.
No.
But what is kind of a questionable card is going to be our last AM card. It is a support. It is the Jungle Trench, 2 cost, also loyal, location trait, combat action. Exhaust this support to prevent 1 damage assigned from each attack made by a non-warlord unit this combat round. So, this affects your units. It also affects the enemy units, importantly. I guess use this after one of your units' attacks. Really, the only awesome combo I thought of immediately is with this Mars Alpha Exterminator. Like, it attacks for 4, so who cares if you're shaving off 1 point of damage, because it just automatically destroys cheap army units and tokens. Maybe with Broderick War, you could combine this with Forward Barracks to create some sort of nightmare situation where your opponent can't quite deal enough damage, and then you can kind of create that attrition win through infinite guardsman tokens. But this does only persist for 1 combat round, and it's not exactly cheap. But what do you think about this one, Sam?
Yeah, I don't know about this one. If it was enemy army units, preventing 1 attack from each enemy army unit, that would be awesome. But
yeah.
it's your units too. I mean, I guess I've seen games, right, where you play like 1 or 2 preemptive barrages and all your shit's exhausted before any of theirs is. Then you could exhaust this thing.
Sure.
And like you say, this war of attrition. But still, like, this kind of like negates war's ability. If you're doing it in war, you're shaving off the bonus attack from everybody. So to me, this is like when you've got a couple big boys and they've got a lot of people.
Right. It's so like more maybe anti-swarm crap.
Yeah, I guess so. But the thing is, most Astra Militarum decks are swarm, except for Maxim. So maybe this is a good card in Maxim.
Maybe. I guess you could also maybe increase the chances of being able to dodge Crushing Blow or the Fury of Sicarius, which, again, if you've got elites, if you can negate Fury, that's cool. But, I don't know. I guess the only other thing I could think of that I have written in my notes here is maybe if your Warlord is ambushed by Eager Recruits or Drop Pod Assault, it's going to be 1 less damage that your Warlord takes. I don't know if that's necessarily enough reason to run this card. So, I'm just not convinced by this one. I don't know.
Me neither. Yeah, me neither.
2 cost. Fuck this card, Sam. But what do you think overall? Astra Militarum, we've seen all of their cards. Where do they stand in the meta?
Well, I still think War is the cream of the crop. And I think if you want to do well competitively with Astra Militarum, War is your best bet. However, Maxim, it's a little too early for me to get a read on him. I haven't played enough as him. I've had pretty good success against him, but I think he's not bad. Straken has gotten better. Like, we've seen a couple Strakens in the top cut of BCL. We've seen Straken doing better in general with his win rate going up. I still think that TC Hammer could be like one of the best warlords in the game, but he's just got a really tough skill set to figure out and navigate and pilot. So I think Astra Militarum are in a pretty good spot overall. I think with War for sure, and the other 3 I think all have their places.
Sure. Well, let's keep this train rolling. Why don't you share with us our last 2 Orc cards?
All right, we've got the Follower of Gork. He is a 2-cost army unit, common, 1 command, 1 attack, 3 HP. He is a warrior, and he is our final elite groupie. Each elite unit you control at this planet gains interrupt. When this unit is assigned damage, reduce that damage by 2. And his little flavor text is, or was it Mork? So he doesn't know who he follows, but nonetheless, he's following the elites. You know, I like this guy. He's not the best elite groupie, but he's not the worst. I mean, 3 HP, they're just going to swing for this thing, and that's fine. That's what most of these things, like most of these elite groupies just have a giant target on them, right?
Sure.
But you can clear cut this guy to make him, like, if you got an elite out, then this guy's like maybe a 8 or 9 HP unit all of a sudden, and then it's going to be really tough for them to deal with your elites. So he's good. Yeah, he seems good to me. And if you're aligned with Orks in your Chaos Elite decks, then it seems pretty good too.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. He absorbs damage, he absorbs a card effect, or you benefit from his ability. I would assume most opponents aren't going to sit there and repeatedly attack your elites when he's going to be able to keep preventing damage. So it seems fine. It's a warrior. It could conceivably work in Straken, but it is probably better with those nasty Chaos elites, because if this guy stops you from being able to kill a vicious bloodletter, that is going to be a nightmare situation right quick. So, not blown away, but I can respect him as a card. But what's next?
Next, we have the 2-cost support Fungal Turf. It is loyal. It is a location, and it has headquarters action. Sacrifice this support to put X Snotling tokens into play, divided among any number of planets. X is the highest printed cost among units you control. I kind of love and hate this card. I love that you could get 6 Snotlings ready to go for the next turn wherever you want for $2 instead of, $2 for like a 4-cost Snotling attack. Because it's a HQ action, like Zoggy will kill all the existing tokens before this thing goes off. What I don't like is that it's a HQ action in that, it's going to be on the board for a long time, and if they can blow it up, they will. It's telegraphed as hell. And if you have a high-cost unit, what are the chances that it's still alive by the HQ phase? Like, maybe you had to battle with that thing at 1 to win the planet, and now it's dead, and you're left with like a 3-cost army unit, somewhere on the border in your HQ. So the potential is high, but it's kind of one of these risk-reward cards for me.
Yep, it is the same cost as Snotling attack, but it is a little bit more telegraphed. I think you bring up a great point that your enemy might react in like an oh shit fashion and destroy your elite. Nobody plays the salvaged battle wagon, which costs 7. It lets you put additional orcs into play, but certainly a lot of people play Squigoth Brute. Some people even remember that it's got a reaction printed on the card. But locations are pretty easy to deal with. I think a lot of people are still running support removal. So this is, kind of the theme for this pack is swing for the fences. It could be great, could be total garbage, and I think this kind of thing is just a little bit more risky than players are willing to be. But, of course, we could be proven wrong. There's still plenty of Conquest to be played, despite the cessation of official development for this game. But Sam, what do you think overall about the Orc faction now that we know each and every instrument available at their disposal?
I like Orcs. I've come around on them. I like them more than I used to. Nazdrag Elites are a thing. Teleportapad is a great card. I think that Nazi and Zoggy are kind of the clear-cut top, and Gorzad is below them. I still think Zogwart is just underrated, man. I think he's really good. He can do elites, and he's got built-in swarm. It's like the best of both worlds. I don't know. I've come around on Orcs. I really like Brutal Cunning. I really like Commando Sneakers. The Blitzabomba is a great card. Squigoth Brute, as we've talked about enough, is a great card. So I really like where Orcs are at. I think they've come a long way since their core set, no trick, overcosted event days. And we'll see. We'll see how they do, I guess, at Worlds. But I think they've come a long way.
Well, we've certainly been surprised before with their Worlds performance, and the faction is in a much, much better place than we've seen in the past, so who knows? Maybe they'll take the championship, but I would be a little bit surprised. Pleasantly surprised, but surprised nonetheless. But Dark Eldar is our next faction. We see 2 army units. First up is going to be another attempt at making an elite for the Dark Eldar. It is the Beastmaster Harvester, 5 cost. It's a deep strike unit. 2 command icons, 2/5. It's a common. Warrior, Beastmaster, Elite. Deep strike 4. So put it in reserve for 1. Deep strike it for 4. No discount here. Reaction, after you deep strike this unit, put 2 Chimera tokens into play at this planet. So you deep strike it, it's a 2/5, you get 2 2/1s, you're going to be able to attack for, 3 different instances of 2 damage, unless your opponent can take a swing and kill one of your tokens. I don't know, Sam, what do you think about this one?
Well, of the 2 Dark Eldar cards that have a corrupted Clawed Fiend on their artwork, this is the better of the 2. It's a 5 cost, so there's no deep strike discount here. It's a 5 cost card that's essentially a 6/7, like in overall stats.
Sure.
If you include the Chimeras. So 5 cost for 2 commands, 6/7 is pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's one of the better Dark Eldar Elites. I still just don't know if that in and of itself is enough for me to run it.
Yeah, I guess the trick here is even though you can get some pretty significant statistics out of it, like a Tactical Squad Cardenas could eliminate most of the utility here. So I would say it's a step in the direction of playable. I mean, I don't know. Do you think that Kith could afford like a 5 cost critter like this thing? Or
probably. I mean, Kith's got good command, so she probably could if she wanted to. It makes the Agonizer of Bryn a little more sexy as an actual attachment, because I never see that thing played as anything other than shields. And if you've got 1 or 2 Chimeras in your train, Kith commits, there's a 3rd, you've got a Chimera Master that you deploy there, there's 4, now you got 5, 6. I mean, that's a formidable little swarm. It makes that Agonizer a little better, so yeah, I don't know. This is a step in the right direction. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And it is common, so it could conceivably be played in Chaos or Eldar. I don't know if it's got much of a home there. I guess it's a warrior, so Taliesin could maybe benefit from this. Man, it's just weird to see tokens outside of, the printed faction. But I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sold on this one, but it could maybe do some stuff. And if you've got some, exhausted enemies that you're up against, that is quite a bit of damage that it could output.
Do you think this can, do anything to make Beast Hunter Witches better? So, Beast Hunter Witches is that 3-cost army unit, 2 command, 1/3, and it's common. And you can, after you play a Dark Eldar event, you can pay $1 to put a Chimera in your HQ. I just wondered if, that's common. That's the only way to get Chimeras in a Chaos deck. I just wondered if, now you could get some sort of, Chimera mass going to, have a little swarm to augment your Chaos elites. I don't know.
I just think people... Promise of Glory puts cultist tokens into play in your HQ, and nobody attacks with those. And that's cheaper, in a sense, than generating these, chimeras that are also going to be showing up exhausted. Maybe that's your jank coming to the surface, so let's get you back in that win the World Championships mindset, Sam. I don't know. I'm not sure about that one. But we've got one more army unit. It is the Hydra Stalker. This is a 3-cost, no command icon, common, 2/3, warrior, witch, and raider. Reaction is after you deploy this unit, deal 2 damage to a target unit with printed cost 2 or lower. So worth noting is that it doesn't need to be at the same planet. It's a raider, so with Archon Selene Morn, you can gain a resource if you play this at a material planet or a red planet, but it does not pass our vanilla test. It's a mere 2/3 for the cost of 3. What do you think about this one?
It's okay. It's good in Morn. It's really good in Morn because it's $2 for a 2/3 that does this. But Morn is kind of like the Dark Eldar Warlord that time forgot about. There's just not a lot of Morn out there, it seems like, at least that I've been seeing. The art is really cool, but what's funny is, other than the Wraithguard Revenant, which doesn't see a lot of play, there is no 2-cost drone unit or spirit unit in Eldar, and I know that doesn't really mean anything, but just from a fluff standpoint, I found that funny with the art, that it's clawing into the head of an Eldar drone, but it's, in most chances, it's not going to ever actually use its effect to smack an Eldar drone.
Sure.
I don't know. I mean, would you pay $2 for a 2/3 with no command and Morn for this thing?
Well, as someone who's never played a Dark Eldar Warlord, I can't really say one way or another. But it just strikes me as odd in Morn. It's not a Kabalite, so it doesn't work with the Kabalite Harriers, which deal damage when you put Kabalites into play. So it just seems like this maybe doesn't quite have a home in anywhere. I guess it's another instance where you could play it in Taliesin just because it's a warrior, and then it would possibly become a 3/4, and direct damage is always cool. It's a unit, so, well, I guess, it has to have a printed cost, so it's not Warlord or Synapse or Token. May as well just say Army Unit, but it could be okay. I'm not exactly sure. I guess maybe if you're concerned about a lot of ranged units, like Viorla marksmen with gun drones and stuff like that, then it could be great. But I'm not blown away by this card by any means.
Yeah, me neither.
But I suppose, Sam, Packmaster Kith is probably still cream of the crop when it comes to Dark Eldar, but, I mean, how is the faction looking overall? Do you think we're going to see another, Dark Eldar heavy World Championship?
Oh, I imagine we'll see a Kith heavy World Championship, but I don't know how much more. Morn had this brief little time in the spotlight, And then when elites became a thing, I think she kind of got pushed out.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I think she kind of had like the flavor of the month thing going on.
Yeah, and Urian is better than he was, but he's still not great. And I think still it's just kind of Kith on top, and the other two were kind of for fun, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. So, yeah, I suppose Kith is probably still tier 1, but the other two don't quite measure up. I don't really think we're going to see anything to suggest otherwise at Worlds, but this pack was a bit of a disappointment for the Dark Eldar, but I suppose it would be fair to say, from my perspective, the Death World cycle hasn't exactly been kind to the Dark Eldar.
No, it has not at all.
Filler after filler cards, so bit of a bummer there. As much as Kith probably doesn't need a lot of help, it just kind of sucks to feel like the designers are, just kind of filling space with the DE cards that they release. But, Sam, how do normal Eldar fare?
I think they fared a little better. So we've got the 4-cost armor unit, the Scorpion Striker. He is common. He's a 1-command 3/3 warrior, deep strike cost of 2, so he's a net 3 for a 1-command 3/3. And the reaction is, after you deep strike this unit, exhaust a target non-elite armor unit at this planet. Pretty good. I mean, he's a warrior, so he works in Taliesin pretty well, I think, for $3. I think he works great in Eldorath for $3. I mean, you can hope to exhaust the elite with Eldorath himself, and then you got this and Mind War and Web Shrine and all your other tricks to get rid of all the other stuff, or at least not get rid of it, but exhaust it. So, yeah, I mean, he's not an auto include, but he's definitely a playable card.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add. Warrior equals Shuriken Catapult. Surprisingly exhausting units is always unpleasant. So I don't know if there are so many viable Eldar played deep strike cards where it's going to be a surprise to see the Scorpion Striker. Like, I don't think people are exactly running the Hidden Strike Chainsword or whatever it's called.
Right.
But it's certainly a nasty effect, and as someone who's been on the receiving end of a triple Mind War play, exhaustion is a very nasty effect, and it doesn't exactly, lose its utility. Maybe this gives you more diversity, and you don't need to include as many Psychers in your deck just to make sure that Mind War is usable. And even if you do have this guy out and Mind War in hand, maybe use him for combat round 1, and then for subsequent rounds, then you break out the Mind War. So, pretty cool card, and this has got to be one of the only pieces of artwork where we have like an upside down unit. So, cool stuff. But what is next?
All right, next is a very interesting card. This is the 4-cost event, Piercing Whale. It is 1 shield. It is common. It has the power trait. Deploy action. Exhaust up to 2 units, each with printed cost X or lower. X is equal to the highest printed cost among units you control. So, man, I don't know about this. I think I'd rather play Doom for $4.
Yeah,
but let's give it a fair shake here. It seems like you got the Shrieking Exarch, you got the Wild Rider Viper. Those are $5. You still see some Mighty Wraith Knight. That's $6. So for $4, you can exhaust 2 5 or 6 cost elites as a deploy action. So, man, I don't know. I don't think I'd play this. I want to like it, and I can see the benefit, but it's pretty situational. You got to have an expensive unit out, and you got to pay $4 just to exhaust 2 expensive units, and then one of those could be backlashed or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or maybe both of them could be backlashed or whatever. Well, no,
I
it's
guess
not. It's not. It's not targeting. Yeah, so they can't. So there's no way to get around this. I just keep thinking I'd rather play Doom. You know what I mean?
I just think it's going to be really rough to surprise someone with this. Like, it's a deploy action, and maybe if your first play is to dump out like a really expensive elite, that's going to eat up all your resources pretty quickly, and then you have 4 resources left. Or if you already have a really expensive elite in play, like, I just think there are easier ways to exhaust enemies. Or if you're running Shrieking Exarch, maybe you don't even need to exhaust anything because, I don't think I noticed this when we actually talked about the Shrieking Exarch, but once units start dying and your opponent runs out of shields, it's like, okay, I'm going to ping your, cheap guy, and then it dies, so I'm going to ping another one of your cheap guys, and you just create this death cascade, and that seems super effective. So, I don't know, it just seems like Piercing Wail does not do enough for as expensive as it is, and for as difficult as it is to get to work. I think it's kind of one of those like win more style cards where by the time you can benefit from it, you're probably already on a, winning course.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. But Eldar are now done. Eldorath is still pretty good. Taliesin did much better than I was expecting in your still ongoing Fall 2016 online league. What do you think about the Eldar as a faction, power-wise?
I think Eldorath is still very, very, very good. You can make an argument he's the best in the game, and if he's not, he's probably the second best in the game.
For Eldar or overall?
I think for overall.
Okay.
I mean, I think Kith is probably the number 1 warlord in the game still. But you can make the case it's Eldorath, and I think he's in the top tier, no questions asked. So, whatever. You can play the ranking game however you want. Is he first? Is he third best? Is he second best? Whatever. But Eldorath, really good. Taliesin, again, she's kind of like the Eldar warlord that time forgot, but I think we saw Intolerance do some good work with her in the most recent Black Crusade. I think she's pretty good. I don't think she's great, but I think she's pretty good. And then I think Vha'shaelhur still needs some help.
Yeah, I totally think that's fair. And
let's take out. I'm looking at the most recent Black Crusade stats. You got 410 games. And we'll take out the one Vha'shaelhur game because he only showed up once.
Okay.
But Baharoth showed up 4 times and went 0 for 4. So that tells you what you need to know about Baharoth. Swarmlord only showed up twice, and Illuminor Xeris showed up 3 times. So those are the only 2 that did worse. But Xeris was new, and Swarmlord's got his own problems. So yeah, I don't know about Baharoth. There's potential, I think, with him because movement is so powerful, but he's not quite there yet.
Yeah, sad. Well, who knows? Maybe the unofficial expansion will be a bit more kind to some of those less often seen Eldar.
Maybe so.
Yeah, so bit of a bummer there, but in trudging forward, we see 2 new cards for Tau. First is an elite. It is the Raging Krutox. It's 5 cost, army unit, creature, Krut, and elite. It is loyal. It's a 2/6, no attachments. Combat action is this unit gets +X attack until the end of the phase. X is the number of resources in your resource pool, limit once per phase. So it's a 2/6, no command for 5. If you have a bunch of resources still in your pool during combat, it could become pretty strong. But normally players don't have a whole hell of a lot of resources just sitting around not doing anything. Is this a total piece of garbage, Sam, or what do you think?
I think, no thank you. I won't be playing this fella. Let's say you win some command and you've got $4 or $5.
Sure.
So now he's a 6/6 or a 7/6. Even that with no command, that's, I guess, above the vanilla test, but not by a mile. he can take no attachments, no promotions, nothing out of Shadow Sun, no ion rifle, no whatever. Maybe you're playing on She and you're sitting on $4 for that new, deep striking stealth suit or the Ennui Prelate, and you make this thing a 6/6 before you drop that in or flip it over. But even still, I could just put an ion rifle on a battle suit, and I've got a 5/5 3-command mobile for basically the same price. Like, if I'm playing Shadow Sun, that ion rifle was probably free. Or if I'm playing Ambush Platform, that ion rifle was free. So, like, a mobile 6/5 with 3 command is a lot better than a non-mobile, no command 6/6. So, I just don't like this thing.
Yeah, and I really hate to do this, but it's something I can never unsee. There's a typo on this card. No attachments does not have a period after it.
Oh,
and now that really, really bothers me. But yeah, Raging Crutox, maybe the best case use is using its combat action before using Ambush Platform to put garbage into play, or before using your events. But really, out of all the elites we've seen thus far, I'm not terribly impressed by this one. Just like you said, Ion Rifle is an incredibly cheap way to get a lot of attack power pretty quickly. If you're not winning command, this guy totally sucks, and he doesn't contribute to helping you win command, so I'm just going to come out and say it. Not a fan of the Raging Crutox. Not an impressive card, but we've got another card for the Tau. Maybe it's a little bit better, maybe not. It's a 0-cost event called Hunter's Ploy. 1 shield, it is common. Tactic, reaction. After the headquarters phase begins, each player gains resources equal to the highest printed cost among units he controls. So if you're running elites, this could be okay. The Raging Crutox would result in 5 resources for you, but your opponent also benefits from it. Mm-hmm. And in the Tau, there's a lot of incentive to play cheaper units and then make them formidable with attachments, and then their printed cost stays low. But you're more experienced than I. What do you think about Hunter's Ploy?
Oh, it's a tricky little card. I mean, if, the elite meta didn't exist, then you could throw some elites in your deck, and this thing could be pretty good. But, Kugath's a thing.
A lot of people playing Black Legion Helldrake.
Right, and so what are you going to do? You're going to have $5 or $6 for yourself and give them $8? I don't know. No thanks on this thing, I think, also.
Yeah.
It's not as shitty as the Crutox, but I'm going to say no thanks overall.
Yeah, and I'm comfortable leaving it at that. So Tau end in a little bit of a whimper. So Sam, during the 2015 World Championship, you brought Commander Shadow Sun as your warlord of choice, relying heavily on allied cards. But what do you think about the Tau competitively in the twilight years of Conquest here?
Oh, they're probably not quite there. I think Shadow Sun is really good, but she's not great. And I think Anchi can be really good in certain matchups. He is the best assassin in the game. But to make him more consistent is to, make him broken. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Starblaze is Starblaze. So, Tau, they're overall probably one of the weaker factions.
Yeah, I hate to say I totally agree, but I kind of have to totally agree. For the previous Black Crusade tournament that you ran, I think Shadow Sun was one of the single worst performing warlords, and I don't know if I've caught any Tau games this season, but yeah, not terribly impressed overall with that faction. So, bit of a bummer, but I guess that's kind of the state of affairs. And just like with the unofficial stuff, there's certainly plenty of room for improvement, and they need it more than most factions.
Mm-hmm.
But, Sam, I've got a soft spot for Tyranids in my heart. They get 2 new cards, and do us the honors of running us through those.
Sure. First up, we've got the 6-cost army unit. This is the Slavering Mawloc. I love that name. I love this art. This, to me, looks like one of those trimmers coming out of the ground from the movie Trimmers,
One of those graboids.
Yeah. But let's get on to it here. So, no command, 3 attack, 6 HP. So for 6, this blows. However, creature Leviathan elite trait, but he's Deep Strike 3. And then has the reaction, after you deep strike this unit, it gains Armor Bane until the end of the phase. I really like this card. For $4, I will take a 3/6 Armor Bane Elite. Most of the time. And, why not? If you're playing Subject Omega, you can ambush in a Ymgarl factor onto this thing. 6 HP is a healthy body. This guy can do a lot of work. Now, his Armor Bane will go away if he survives, and then he's not as great. But this guy can wreck some face, and he's a good target for sudden adaptation. Maybe at the end of the phase, like if he wasn't, if he didn't go back to your HQ from First Planet, then you can, or even, I guess, before you win the planet and capture it, you can set an adaptation in another elite, take this guy back to your hand, and do it all again for $4 on the next turn. So sure. I like this thing.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what to think about it competitively. I must say, you mentioned that you like the artwork, and I absolutely hate the artwork on this card. I like what the artist is going for in that it's the Mawloc's kind of uniquely shaped, hyper-extended jaws kind of spreading apart. Like, I believe a snake has 4 different mandibles that each can move independently so it can swallow its prey, and that's kind of what the artist is going for. But if you look at like the northernmost part of the artwork, it's just kind of split apart in a way that doesn't allow the Mawloc to have the head that the miniature has modeled. So it's just kind of like a mouth with no head that has like the carapace plating. So it just seems like I get what they were going for, and obviously this is far, far better than I could do, but I just think it kind of missed. But it is a pretty cool unit. It normally costs 6, but for Deep Strike it's only 4. So a 3/6 Armor Bane for 4 is pretty cool, and until the end of the phase is pretty significant. You could use Ymgarl Factor with Subject Omega X 62113. So there are a lot of cool options here, and so far as deep striking stuff goes, this is pretty interesting. I was really curious to see how they would do a Mawloc, which, bursts out of the ground after tunneling underneath its prey. In like the tabletop game, you deal damage via you put down a blast template and it erupts out of the ground. And so I suppose it still takes its prey by surprise, but I think this guy is fine, and I'll just be curious to see if anybody does anything interesting with it. But I guess, what is our final NID card?
Final NID card is the 2-cost attachment, Armored Shell. It has 1 shield. It is war gear and a biomorph. Attached to an army unit you control. Reaction. After attached unit is assigned damage by an attack, prevent all but 2 of that damage. I like this thing. I mean, in an elite heavy meta where people are swinging hard, you can take a 5 or 4, 6 or 8, value attack and drop it down to 2. And then you can regen that shit right off. So I think this is a good card to put on your elites. I think that's the best place for it.
Sure.
And it can help them live longer. And I like this. What do you think?
Well, I agree with what you say. When you do play a Tyranid deck, what elites are you running? Because there are certainly plenty of them.
Yeah, I mean, usually it's the Ymgarl Gene Stealer, the Striking Ravener, a little bit of the Harpy as well. So,
okay.
those are good good candidates for it.
Yeah, so I think it definitely does power up the Tyranid elites. Well, I think it's old One Eye that probably does best with those. So it's a cool card. It's another kind of attachment that it's not exactly cheap, and you've got to put it on an already expensive unit. But we saw Invasion Site, which helps Tyranids when it comes to generating resources. And I guess there's also Biomass Sacrifice, which could also help Tyranids with generating resources. And it seems like Tyranids, whether it's the Striking Ravener or the Shrieking Harpy, it's really not my preferred playstyle, but if you can get one combo to go off, it's kind of a game ender, so it could be a pretty cool card. But what do you think about the Tyranids as a faction?
Well, I think they're there with Tau in that they're good but not great. I think overall they're one of the weaker factions as well. They just, other than Swarm Lord, there's no control really to speak of. They can hit hard. They can be a pain in the ass to deal with. They have some cool tricks, but overall I think they're a little down. I think the Hive Mind was never fully realized or developed for Swarm Lord.
Right.
Old One Eye can go, toe to toe with his ability. He's kind of like the poor man's Kugath, though. That's just what I think. And Subject to Omega is good. A lot of surprises there with his ability to, just drop stuff at infested planets via ambush. But even he's good, but he's not great. So I think they're good, not great. And I think Swarm Lord's probably better than Starblaze, but they're kind of like right there with Tau, where they got a couple good warlords and one that's not so good.
Yeah, I've lost track of how many games I've seen where old One Eye, for instance, is on the cusp of winning, but he just totally runs out of steam. He doesn't have any control, or the Swarm Lord has control, but you don't draw, whatever it's called, Indescribable Horror, or you just don't have the attack power to get much of anything done.
Right.
Those 1/1 tokens aren't quite what they used to be, just because Kugath, I mean, he can practically put out elites at the same pace that the Swarm Lord puts out, like, 1/1s or something, so...
It's interesting, too, because I feel like Swarm Lord... I feel like it wouldn't take much to get him to be better, because you look at... even though we are in an elite meta, Kith and War are like your two stereotypical Swarm decks. And those are... And Kith and War are good. Still, even in the elite meta, they're still really good. But for whatever reason, Swarm Lord is just not there.
Yeah. I don't know if it's just the fact that he has to show up at a planet where he's not generating tokens, or if it's just maybe that Hive Mind specialization is kind of flawed or just not significant enough. But yeah, it just kind of bites. And with this elite heavy meta, it gets real easy to destroy those Hive Mind units. And man, it just seems like it's so easy to pick apart something like that. But anyways, we've got one last faction to cover. It is the Necrons, the last faction to be introduced. 2 cards, 2 army units. First up, we've got a 4-coster. It is the Dread Command Barge. 3 command icons, 3/3. It's a vehicle, no war gear attachments. Command action is discard a non-Necron card from your hand to move this unit to an adjacent planet. So it's expensive, but it's going to be winning command for you. You can discard cards and then move it after it attacks, maybe if you've got initiative. I don't think there are enough Necron vehicles to make it really viable, but there's that Quantum Shielding card where instead of discarding it, you can just boost up a Necron vehicle's HP. Doom Scythe Invader might be able to put this thing from your discard pile into play, but you'd hope that this is either out there winning command or living, because it can kind of run away or run to combat. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. It's a good card. $4 to win command somewhere and then get a 3/3 in the fight seems okay. Like, this just seems like a good card, but not a great card to me.
Yeah. Maybe if we'd have seen something with more like vehicle synergy, like that Doomscythe Invader suggests would have one day become a thing, maybe it would be better. But as it is, I mean, 4 command icons is a lot. 4 cost is a lot. 3 command icons is a lot as well. But maybe that's a little bit overkill. Yeah, it's okay. It's not great. No war gear attachments. Probably isn't the end of the world, but I just find it somewhat underwhelming. But, I guess, speaking of anything but underwhelming, we've got one last card, one last army unit. It is Shard of the Deceiver. It is a cost of 7. It is an army unit. It is 2 command icons, X attack, X HP, it's Catan and Elite. X is equal to the number of cards in your discard pile. Forced reaction is after a phase or combat round at this planet begins, discard a card. If you have no cards in your hand, discard this unit. So, if you've got 20 cards in your discard pile, it's a 20 attack, 20 HP unit. You're only forced to discard cards if it's at a planet, so if it's in your HQ, you can go through phases and you're not discarding anything. But if you don't have any cards left in your hand, you must get rid of that unit. So, this is swinging for the fences if ever a card was. I mean, what do you think about... Obviously, this card is fun, but is it practical? Is it broken?
Boy, I don't know, Mitch. This is a really interesting one to me. I do have a quick question. Is it after a phase or a combat round?
It's basically both.
Well, my question is this. Like, if a phase begins and he's not at a planet... Does the force reaction goes off, or is it combat round at this planet,
I see what you're
phase,
saying.
Or is it phase or combat round at this planet?
Okay, that's a really important distinction.
I mean, I don't know how often that's going to matter. He's going to be at the planet during command. He's going to be at the planet during combat starting. But like, what if he's back in HQ when the headquarters phase starts? Do you have to do it again?
Yeah.
And then when the command... so then he'll be back at a planet. So I guess it's just that HQ phase. If he's lived a turn or lived a battle, I guess we can find that out and clarify later. But
yeah,
at any rate...
I would say... Well, I guess my initial assumption is it's after a phase or combat round at this planet, as opposed to after a phase or a combat round at this planet.
Right.
But
okay.
That is going to make a big difference.
Right.
But still.
Either way, I mean, it's going to take... The first time you play him, you've got to discard 3 cards to get him to live.
Sure.
You've got to... command's going to start at the planet, combat phase is going to start at the planet, combat round is going to start at the planet.
Right.
However, as a finisher, this thing is fucking awesome. Like... If you've got a big hand, or even a medium-sized hand, then this is like your game finisher. I mean, this is like you say, a 20/20 for 7.
Yeah.
Really good card.
Yeah.
Conditionally, best card in the game. Also
right.
Conditionally, pretty horrible. So
right.
It's kind of fun. It goes back to like we were talking earlier, like the risk-reward kind of ratio. So
yeah. I mean, if you've got initiative and your opponent's warlord is bloodied, then it's like GG. But maybe they're going to do the indomitable play. Maybe you don't have backlash, and maybe they can use Archon's Terror. It's kind of interesting that this is not a unique card, I guess. But yeah, I mean, if you can get it to work, then great. You can annihilate your opponent's big elite. But because there's that forced reaction, if your opponent retreats and forces you into some sort of shitty situation, maybe you're just going to end up having to discard your entire hand. Or maybe you're going to run out of, every combat round, you've got to discard a card. Maybe you're shielding some of your other units. Maybe you run out of cards pretty quickly, maybe not. But recycle is a thing to make sure you've got a lot of cards in hand. And, I wouldn't play this if I was in a situation where where I'm really having to cross my fingers and hope for the best. Like, I would want this to try and be some sort of guaranteed win. So, I don't know. I guess when it comes down to it, I'm just not sure what to make of this unit. Could be cool. It's probably not going to be cool, but it could be. So,
I mean, if you have 5 cards in your hand, and this is your last deploy move, this guy's living through 2 combat rounds, and yeah, he'll die after that, but like, he's going to destroy, other than Indomitable, right?
Yeah.
He's going to destroy anything. And everything. So what would be horrible is if you play this guy and then they played like Roth.
Sure.
But I don't know. I haven't seen him yet. I would love to see him. Even if it meant I lost the game, like I would just love to see this guy. Just because it's just cool. It's a cool card. And it's one of we see cards that are made that are really cool, but like competitively they're not there. But this guy has the potential to be awesome competitively. It's just that he also has the potential to not do much at all. So,
yeah.
But he's a finisher. Put 2 of them in your deck and save them till the big battle at the end, and then go to town. So,
yep. So, I look forward to witnessing this thing in action. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see that anytime soon, but who knows? Maybe it'll be the World Championship winning play, and I think it'd be very cool if the Necrons were to win the World Championship, but I'm probably not going to hold my breath with that one, because Sam, how are the Necrons looking in regard to competitive status?
Oh, they're looking... I don't know, man. It's too early for me to... I mean, we've only really seen them for a cycle, right? So... It's like, I don't know. It's the end of the game. We're in the twilight phase, but I still feel like it's too early to tell, just because I haven't seen enough of them. I mean, like me personally, I've done really well against Necrons. I think I'm like 20-2 against Necrons or something. So, like, I don't really fear them, but I don't know. Maybe there's some room for them. I still like Onrakir the best. And Nahumek is just not my bag for whatever reason. I don't know. And Xeris, I don't think he's there yet either. I mean, the problem, like, in this last cycle, okay, you've got Warlords who have an existing card pool to help augment their new stuff. But, like, the card pool for Necrons is so small. I mean, granted, it's big because of the allies. But, like, Xeris, he doesn't want a ton of allies because he's healing Necrons. And, yeah, I don't know. I think the jury's out on how good or not good they are. My gut tells me they're somewhere in line with, like, the Tyranids.
Sure.
You know what I would love? I would love to get a Satan out or Catan out, whatever this guy's name is actually called, Shard of the Deceiver. I would love to get this guy out with a Dread Monolith.
Right. That would be pretty ridiculous.
That'd be pretty cool. But, yeah, I don't know. I think they're kind of in line with Nids. What do you think?
Well, I definitely have been unimpressed by Nahumek. I've yet to be wowed by Xeris, but I've also not really seen Xeris played. Onrakir, in the hands of a truly expert-level player, Pagemon, part of your development team, I've seen him do some incredible things with Onrakir, but that was in large part due to the existence of Shrieking Exarch, and I think it was in part because Pagemon is such a stellar player that he was able to do as much as he did. I think more often than not, Onrakir just cannot quite cut it. But, again, I don't know. My sample size is a little bit too small to make any sort of giant claim.
Yeah.
But, Sam, we've come to the end of our very last war pack. I never really thought this day would happen when I first sought out to begin producing the Tyrantcast here. I kind of presume that I would kind of grow apart from Conquest as opposed to the game would come to an end and kind of force me to cover it less often. But what do you think about this final official war pack overall?
I would say it's a very interesting war pack. I think Vha'shaelhur is very good. I think Space Marine's got some good cards. These two Astra Militarum cards are The Ork cards are okay. Dark Eldar, in keeping in line with this whole cycle, we can just pass on. The Eldar cards are... the Striking Scorpion guy is fine.
Sure. The
Piercing Whale is Not too impressed with Tau. I do like what Tyranids got for once. And then, I don't know, the the Necron here is, I think, a hit or a miss to be determined in game. So... I don't know. I think it's an interesting pack. It's a swing for the fences with a lot of these, like you kind of said.
Yeah, I've got to say, unless you're particularly interested in Vha'shaelhur, this is maybe one of the last on your list of war packs to pick up. I'm just kind of far more often than not left a bit unimpressed and wanting with some of these cards here. But just because this is the last war pack, it's the capstone to the Death World cycle. What do you think about the cycle overall? It was supposed to bring elites to a greater position of prominence. It was supposed to introduce, and it did introduce the deep strike mechanic. But what do you think about the overall trends and themes of the cycle? Are you a fan? Do you think it kind of succeeded to do what it sought out to?
I think elites are definitely a thing now. And so I think that's cool that we've moved away from one type of meta and we've got a new type of meta. I think the jury's still out on Deep Strike. I see what they're going for, but we have to look at this through the prism of we know it's like officially canceled, right?
Yeah, right.
So we know that there's no more official Deep Strike cards coming. Or any cards coming. So there's, I think, a lot of themes left underdeveloped or underexplored. And, I don't know. I do really like that the meta changed and elites are a thing. To me, it's more fun. It's not like, oh shit, I can't keep up with War and Kith, so I guess I'm done.
Yeah.
I like that. But, Deep Strike, I think, there's still factions where, other than visual, it's like, okay, this is I know exactly what that card is, or I know it's going to be one of these two cards, and right. That's kind of unfortunate, but it is the way it is.
What also strikes me as a little bit unfortunate is I'm not convinced that the Deep Strike cards we've seen so far are good enough to be salvageable. I don't know if Deep Strike suddenly became more common. I think it's more dependent on the power of the individual cards to make them worth playing, as opposed to I'm gonna surprise my opponent with some mystery or something. I still think a shitty card is a shitty card, and a lot of this Deep Strike stuff we've seen just doesn't really hit me as competitive or playable. Mm-hmm. So I'm just kind of underwhelmed by the mechanic. I'm a bit disappointed, frankly, that a lot of the elites we've seen, in a sense, it's elites for the sake of elites. The Raging Krutox isn't exactly compelling me to run out and make a, elite Tau deck of that style. The Beastmaster Harvester, I'm not exactly rushing to go make some sort of DE deck that includes that kind of thing. So I don't know. The cycle was pretty ambitious, and it just unfortunately feels unfinished, but probably because only a little more than half of our factions saw a new warlord, there was probably a complementary cycle in the works, and unfortunately we're never going to be made privy as to what Brad Andrews' designs were for
right.
a bunch of never to be seen content. So it's tragic that Conquest is coming to a premature end here, but hopefully the community will come up with some interesting new stuff. Some interesting playable new stuff, but I'm excited for the future one way or the other, and regardless, I'll certainly have a lot of positive memories from my involvement with this game, for continuing to put out the occasional Conquest video. But Sam, any final thoughts, or shall you and I, sign off and do all that business?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just, thanks again for listening, guys, and thanks for sticking with us for this run of Conquest. But, we got 2 episodes left, Mitch. We'll come back in 2 or 3 weeks and do the Worlds review and wrap up. I'll share my experiences with what I saw, and I'm sure we'll talk about what happened. And then we'll have a big finale going away episode. So, yeah, thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, so a bit of a bummer to end on a sorrowful note, but there is still more Tyrantcast coming. There's going to be more Conquest coming. The Black Crusade online leagues will continue to go on, and this card game is only as dead as it is in the hearts and minds of the community. So there's still plenty of competitive LCG to be played. Conquest remains a hell of a game, and I just look forward to the unofficial content still to come. So, Sam, best of luck to you at the upcoming World Championship here. I'm sure the community is dying to hear how well you do. I look forward to hearing all about it myself, and then there's still that one last final episode, hopefully with the guys from the First Planet podcast and a few select community members.
Correct.
So, to all you listeners out there, thank you so much for checking out episode 27 of the Tyrantcast. I've been the Hive Tyrant. Sam has been Warmaster Sam Mann. So, we'll end it here. Get in touch with us on social media. He and I are on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter. Email me if you want. I don't know if I've ever gotten a single email sent to the Conquest Hive Tyrant at gmail.com address. But let Sam and I know what your thoughts are, your memories of Conquest. Ask us, talk to us, anything you want. If you'd like to support my continued efforts to continue to cover Conquest, I've got a Patreon page set up as well. So, as always, thank you so much for listening, thank you for watching, and be sure to check back in again soon for more Conquest LCG content to come. And take care.